We get a major report from NHL insider Elliotte Friedman on the Martin Necas asking price and on how this will be hard for the Canucks to pull off. I'll get into this later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to give a shout out to everyone that is subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, we're trying to hit 2,500 subscribers. It's completely free and you'll be able to keep up to date on everything around the Canucks as we go through the offseason. In the next season, we'll give you updates on prospects, game recaps, trades, rumors, anything you can think of. Make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. With that, let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Canucks in on Martin Necas. Now, with Martin Necas, obviously he is a Carolina winger. The first report we get is from Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period. There was a lot of interest in Necas, he said on the NHL Network on Friday, so this was a few days ago. He was saying that the club, which is Carolina Hurricanes, wanted to hold off for a little bit and see if they could take a stab at signing him, but teams like Calgary, Nashville, Seattle, Philadelphia, Montreal, and then none other than the Vancouver Canucks are among teams that are interested. Martin Necas is a winger that almost asked to be in a bigger role for Carolina, and this is a big reason why a lot of people are speculating that he will be moved early as this week. Now, we get a report from Elliotte Friedman, which is quite a big one, that the Canucks are indeed trying to get Martin Necas. It is a harder deal to do with no Pettersson in the deal like last time. The Canes will want a top prospect. Hronek won't do it. It's a hard deal to do. Now, before we get into what the Canucks can give up, I wanted to give a brief breakdown on who Necas is. Necas, obviously a winger. It does say center here, but he did play wing for the Carolina Hurricanes. At the age of 25, he is coming off a productive season, 24 goals, 29 assists, 53 total points. Going into the playoffs in 11 games with the Hurricanes, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points. You can see last season, which was his most productive season as an NHL player, put up 28 goals, which is only a 4 and a difference from this season, 43 assists, which is decent jump, and 71 points. The biggest thing with Necas, a former first round 12th overall draft pick in 2017, is he wants a bigger role within teams. Now, when you do look at him, his ice time did drop a tiny bit. You can see the ATOI on the right side of the screen. He did drop in just over a minute. He played 17 minutes and 21 seconds on ice. Last season, 18 minutes and 25 seconds, which does kind of count towards why he lost so many points. Yes, the points did drop by almost 20, but he still was productive, as I said. He is a right wing that can play a tiny bit. I wouldn't trust him on draws where he only won 34% on the 91 he took. Last season, he did win 45% of the 229 he took. And you can see that other seasons he was more productive. So if you need a guy to fill in, if a guy like Elias Pettersson or JT Miller was thrown out of the circle, Necas can do this for you as well. He did throw 77 hits in 77 games this year, so a hit per game. You can see 31 blocked shots, and this is an offensively gifted talent. The biggest thing with the Canucks is this is what they've been looking for. Necas is a guy that would fit perfectly in the top 6 as your second, third, or even fourth best offensive player. Now, when you do look at Necas, he is coming off his 2-year deal. That did work out to $6 million per season, or over 2 years, which is $3 million per season. He did sign this bridge deal with Carolina, and it was to keep him within the organization. We did see him have his 2 most productive seasons during the 2 years, which is why he's asking for a raise. Now, the biggest thing with this is, and like Elliotte Friedman said, this is going to cost a pretty penny. It's not going to just cost Hronek in a 1-for-1 deal. They want a top prospect that can fill into this team. And the Canucks, while having some top prospects, it's hard to get this deal done. Obviously, a lot of fans want to move on from a guy like Hronek to bring in more top-end talent. This Canucks team has so many free agents in Elias Lindholm, guys like Nikita Sidorov, Tyler Myers, Hronek. There's so many guys this Canucks team needs to sign, and I'm really going to break that down for you on how the Canucks could work this out and if it can work out. And I'll get into what would it cost for the Canucks to get Martin Necas. So when you do look at the Canucks draft capital, they have no first-round pick, no second-round pick. They do have a third, fourth, 2, 6, and a 7th this year. The following season, which will be next draft in 2025, they do have a first and a second. The following season, they do have a first and a second as well, but no third in those 2 drafts. So what the thing with the Canucks Are they willing to move on from one of their first round picks in the next 2 seasons and really put themselves in a stranglehold of not having any top end draft capital to trade at deadlines, to draft more talent, to keep this window open? A third round pick's not going to get this done. You could attach a second, but with the Hurricanes wanting a top end prospect, a second round pick is not going to get this done. So really get you into what prospects can the Canucks move, and there's a few names here as well. Top prospect for the Canucks organization, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, is the first name that pops up. If you've been a fan of this channel, if you're just watching this channel, I'm a huge supporter and a huge fan of Jonathan Lekkerimäki's game. This is a guy that played in the World Juniors, leading the whole World Juniors in scoring with 9. We've seen him win the World Juniors MVP, winning the silver medal after losing to Team USA. This is a guy that played for Abro in the Swedish Hockey League in the Tier 1. He was one of his team's MVPs. He dominated in the playoffs before getting knocked out and coming over to Abbotsford. He practiced. He was in the roster for the World Championships, being one of the final cuts. This is still a young talent that has so much promise. If you look at Cap Friendly or if you look at the elite prospects on this guy, one of the reports says, get him the puck, he will work magic on the man advantage. This is a guy the Canucks are going to desperately need in the next couple seasons when he finally develops and makes the roster. This is a guy that I think is going to make a name for himself in this training camp and could crack the opening night roster as well. This is a guy that could fill in the top 6, but if he's not ready, Martin Necas is a guy that could fit right away. So maybe the Canucks look at moving on from him, even though I think that would be a terrible idea. Otto Radu is another guy that dominated in the AHL. Coming over in the Bo Horvat trade that they could attach to this. You have Linus Karlsson, who did make his debut for the Canucks in the playoffs this year while leading Abbotsford in scoring. He looked great, but he didn't really look completely in place in the playoffs, which is fair enough as a young guy coming up and getting straight into second round action. You have defensive prospects like Elias Pettersson, which is DPD, who did play on Abro's Tier 2 team. This is a guy that came over and has looked good for Abbotsford. He's a big body defenseman. Tom Willender's another name. There's so many people in this organization. My 2 biggest ones to not move would obviously be Jonathan Lekkerimäki and Arshdeep Bains, a fan favorite and a hometown kid. These guys are going to be untouchables in my mind. Obviously, guys like Radu has been good. You have guys like DPD who has been good. Tom Willender, who's not even on this list, is another name the Canucks have that could be moved in this. I won't break down too many more prospects because this is not a prospect video, but these are some guys the Canucks could be looking at having to move if they go out and get Necas. So with this, we also get a report from DeMarco, who is a head reporter for the fourth period with Dave Pagnotta. He said the general consensus with the league source is that Martin Necas will be in a line for 6 to 8 year deal at 7 to 7.5 AAV. The Carolina wanted to take a run at signing him. This was from a few days ago, where it looks like that's kind of falling apart and teams are really putting heavy in on him. So they're going to have heavy interest, which obviously we've seen in the reports. Now, bringing a guy like Necas, I did put him on the right side. You can see him one down from Boeser. He's making $7.25 million. I just wanted to go right between on the report. If you bring this guy in, you still need a fourth line right-handed forward. You still need 2 right-handed defensemen. Still need a left-handed defenseman. You do have a backup goaltender, which you can bring back. You do need multiple pieces. People that aren't signed on this list are guys like Hronek, Elias Lindholm, Dakota Joshua, Tyler Myers, Nikita Zadorov. There's so many guys not signed here, and the Canucks would have about $19 million to work with. Do I think this trade makes sense? Yes. Do I think the Canucks should go and put the whole bank on this guy? Not necessarily. There's going to be a lot of free agents. You have guys like Tyler Toffoli that can come in. Necas is great. Yes, he's young. Yes, he's a guy that can produce for you. But with the Carolina Hurricanes, and I'm not saying this is bad for them, they want a top-end talent. Hronek won't do it. I think this is too much of an asking price. If they can get it done for a B-level prospect, maybe a second or a third, throw in Hronek, whatever it may take, sure. Go out and get Pettersson as winger. Go get a guy that can produce in the playoffs. But it's really going to come down to a bidding war on this guy. And I don't think the Canucks should be willing to put the bank on one player while their window's just opening. But what's your guys' thoughts on all this? I know it's a lot to take in. Would you trade for Martin Necas? What would you give up for him? Would you be fine with moving on from a guy like Jonathan Lekkerimäki, Arshdeep Bains, Tom Willender? any of these guys? And what would you be willing to pay him if we did sign him? Let us know down in the comments. And talking about comments, let's get into everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. Comment of the day comes from Canuck Tony. He said, what about Jet Wu? Been watching him for about 4 years. Right-handed defenseman that is tough. The biggest thing with Jet Wu is he has dealt with a lot of injuries during his career. I'm a big supporter of Jet Wu. I think Jet Wu would be awesome. We did see him get called up a couple times throughout the season for the Canucks. He never got into a game. We see that he is a guy that shows so much promise, but maybe this is his last time. We see as well, he's an RFA. They have to sign him. If they don't sign him, they can let him walk into free agency. Maybe they bring him back on a cheap one-year deal. Who really knows what's going to happen? But I am rooting for a guy like Jet Wu, and I'd love to see him in a Canucks jersey making an impact as early as next season. But that'd be it for this episode of Canucks Digest. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go down and leave a comment. Tell me your thoughts on everything. You could be featured on the next episode as comment of the day. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe. We're trying to hit 2,500 subscribers. Share this with your friends. We'll be back tonight or tomorrow with another video on the Canucks. So keep an eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark. Bye. Take care.